Welcome to NFL Daily, where we aren't too cool to love seeing NFL Daily on your Spotify Wrapped list.
Yes.
I don't care that it's just like a marketing gimmick. Whatever. It's fun. It makes me feel good. We've been doing this show for a while. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with Steve Wyche and Patrick Claybon. And yeah, we're getting to the end of the year. I'm a big end of year list type of guys. I love seeing that stuff. And I love hearing from so many of the listeners that made up for some lost time and still got us to number one on their list.
You got to love that. You got to love it. Tell me this real quick. Speaking of your Wrapped list, does your Wrapped list, is it like your workout playlist or what? Because mine's like my workout playlist.
Yeah, because I'm not listening to a whole lot of music anymore. My commute's very short now, so if I'm listening to music, it's because I'm in the gym.
I play a lot of music when I'm at home. Like if you're watching a little tape, you got some music on. If I'm in the car, certainly. I don't go all podcasts. You got some music, so it's all my music, not really workout music. But sometimes your son, uses your account, and then suddenly Imagine Dragons is like their number 3 band of the year, and you're like,
yes,
come on, bro.
Yes.
Like, it's better. It's not better than the kids' music.
Messing up the algo.
Yeah, it's killing me. Come on, Imagine Dragons, like just killing it with 8 to 9-year-old boys, just year after year. We're here for the Week 14 preview.
Yeah,
very excited about this one. It's our last week, Patrick, with buys. So 6 buys this week. Your Ravens are finally off. My Patriots are finally off. So it's a little bit of a lighter schedule.
Yeah, the fantasy community bemoaning the fact that a lot of people are dying to get in the playoffs, and they're going to have to do it managing waiver wires. Folks starting Will Levis just got to try to make it into the postseason in fake football. So let's go from smallest to the biggest spread. We will start with a huge game. Speaking of making it to the playoffs, in the NFC West, it's the rematch from a couple of weeks ago. The Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals, 2.5-point favorites. We saw the Seahawks play poorly early, Greg, and then come back and win. Just the only errors the Seahawks seemed to make were catastrophic errors against the Jets. They managed to win because they played the Jets. The Arizona Cardinals played a much better team, wilted late against the Vikings. How do you see this one going?
I lean towards the Cardinals because when you play 2 games in 3 weeks, again, and they're both good teams, it's really hard to sweep a team. If Jonathan Gannon loses this matchup to Mike McDonald, like that to me is almost like an early show of dominance. Like this is a guy I'm going to be playing twice a year in theory for a while to come out swinging, and you take out the other defensive-minded head coach twice in 3 weeks. It's the biggest game of the week in terms of the playoffs. If the Seahawks win, and this is according to FTN in Aaron Schatz, if the Seahawks win, they have a 62% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose the game, they have an 11% chance.
Ooh.
And the spread is similar for the Cardinals. If they win, they're 71%, 17% if they lose. And what the math is saying there is, obviously, if the Seahawks sweep the Cardinals, that's a huge advantage, and probably there's only one team getting out of this division, more likely than not. But if the Cardinals win, they have an easier schedule a little bit down the stretch, and I think the numbers underline kind of show maybe they're a slightly better team than the Seahawks. We'll have to see who's playing their best at the end of the season because both their defenses are playing right now. Well, right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you brought this up yesterday on the show, Greg. Seattle's playing well at the end of ball games. And, and Arizona's been a little touch and go when it comes to that. We saw that last week against the Vikings. So the 2.5 number seems about right. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. We'll see if your guy Gino, Ripcord Gino, balls out a little bit, But
what happens on Quarterback Island stays on Quarterback Island.
We're good. That's
it's a lot of pressure for Gino right now. Kyler got booted off.
Kyler got booted, so he might be a little angry. But I like the Arizona Cardinals for this one. I'm with you, and as far as the narrow margin of when you play these games and sweeping it, that is a difficult thing.
I said it a couple of weeks ago when I initially picked the Seahawks to win at home that we would come to this game at this point, and I would take the home team Arizona Cardinals to win the next one. I think these two teams are very, very similar in terms of their overall potential to make a push here late. And a lot of it is based on the defensive improvement we've seen from Seattle.
Yep.
And over on the other side, Greg inspired me to delve more in and to share my knowledge of the search of the Arizona Cardinals. It's my affectionate nickname for guys that make plays. I'm like, who is that? So today we meet Garrett Alexander-Williams, a defensive back, his second season out of Syracuse.
He was pretty good as a rookie.
Yeah,
he currently leads the team in interceptions. If teams are in 3 wide receiver sets, he's more than likely on the field. He is Garrett is my name 3 on Twitter.com. The 3 replaces the E in name. And I watched a lot of his snaps. He's a really good football player. I'm glad I know his name now. I hope more people appreciate him.
Yeah, and he could be matching up at some point against JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's
balling,
getting up there in terms. When you look just like total yards over the last half season, he's moving up. You hope DK Metcalf is healthy. It's a tough matchup. Since week 9, the Seahawks are 3rd in the league in EPA per play in terms of their defense, 7th in success rate. So they have really turned things around, and what they did in that first matchup against Arizona was find a way to really slow down that Cardinals running game, force them into long yardage situations, and blitz Kyler Murray. And the Vikings, I don't know if it was from them watching that tape last week or not, or you don't have to ask them to blitz, but the offensive line and Kyler combined to struggle to identify where the free rushers were coming from. So even though they moved the ball quite well in that game, when the Vikings blitzed, it was a big problem. That's actually been a problem for Kyler all season long. His numbers against the blitz have not been great, so that's something to watch for.
And you saw the Vikings very lane disciplined blitzing. They weren't necessarily trying to get upfield to protect him. Let's get in his eye. Let's get in his passing lanes. Let's get in his eyesight. Let's be creative. That's something that we could see. Real quick, kudos to you for saying that McDonald could go Kyle Shanahan over Sean McVay if he goes and he sweeps John Gannon right here.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit of that, hey, I got your number.
Well, they brought McDonald here to be kind of the Shanahan tree killer, and I know he lost that game to the Rams, but I thought they played well defensively in that game, and then they finally got a win over the 49ers. I think there is something to that with guys that are going to be around and playing each other for a while. I think so.
Yeah, it's harder to sell because there's the friends, the on the same coaching staff, of course the picture of the 2006 Washington
Football Club
football franchise. I almost had to put one in the slur jar there, where everybody's on the same coaching staff. But yeah, despite that, they could still have this rivalry in the division where both teams 5-3 in their last. 3-2 in their last 5 games.
And it's such a big game for the Cardinals because they suddenly what would have been such a promising season at 6-7, and you're looking up at the Seahawks at 8-5. Suddenly they are just not feeling great about themselves. And one big advantage I do give the Seahawks, if it is close, and I was talking about the end of game sequences, I think Mike McDonald's really been excellent in those situations. If you watch the end of the halves, it helps to have a veteran quarterback like Geno Smith, certainly. If you watch the end of the halves and the end of the games, clock management, when to use challenges, when to use timeouts, the numbers show that they're one of the best teams in the league, and just watching it, they're very on it. And we tend to only notice the coaches that are bad at it.
Right.
But they are very good at it, and he's a rookie head coach. So I give him some credit. Where on the flip side, Greg Olsen was killing Jonathan Gannon last week for kicking that field goal to go up 6 with about 3 minutes to go. Instead of going for it on 4th and 3, they end up losing by 1. So maybe if it is close at the end, you trust the Seahawks a little more.
Great point.
Yeah, still looking forward to a great matchup. It's going to be huge in terms of playoff implications.
And it's 4:05, by the way. That's the best game in the afternoon. It's the 4:05. Sorry for interrupting.
No,
it
you're
annoys
good.
Me.
It's worth noting. Time is important. These next 2 teams are not making a push for the playoffs.
I thought you were going to sell it, Patrick.
No.
Okay. All right, Steve. In Nashville, Tennessee, Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans, 3.5-point favorites over Mac Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The over-under 39.5. Andrew Catalong, Jason McCourty, Tiki Barber, and A.J. Ross. It's only 39.5 points that the experts believe, Steve. But every single one of those points will be valuable because this quarterback matchup, it's still, right, we're not necessarily evaluating Mac Jones, evaluating Will Levis, who didn't have a turnover against the Washington Commanders last week. But the offense didn't really have a lot to speak of.
By the way, I'm buying your igloo in Alaska. Way to sell it. Well done. The 39.5 almost looks high to me because Jacksonville couldn't score when Trevor Lawrence is playing. And then Mac Jones, they really can't score. This is one, Tennessee.
You're forcing it here.
I am forcing it, but I'm just kind of like Tennessee.
That's why you make the big bucks. It's not the primetime games. It's like the 10 a.m. game where no one's in the crowd. You got to still put up those shots.
Right, but I mean, this is one where you say to yourself, okay, what team is building for what? Like, this is like, all right, these guys are kind of playing at the string right here. But Will Levis, you talked about, no giveaways last week. This is a defense where he should feast because Jacksonville has not figured out at any level, except for those guys on the edges. Those are very good players. So I would think that Tennessee, and they're probably going to get a defensive takeaway on the side too. I like Tennessee. I like the 3.5. I think they win by a much bigger margin.
I've been waiting for more of these games, and on the preview show, I think we're at the point of the season we can be a little quicker on these types of games. There actually haven't been as many. I expected a ton of them because there's so many teams with bad records. There haven't been many the last couple of weeks where truly both teams this season is done. One thing the Titans can look to is their rookie draft class, where they've had some players show up, and that's important for a young general manager and Rand Carthon, a first-time head coach. Sweat has played well at defensive tackle. J.C. Lathan, I don't think he's an all-pro right now, but if you can just play as a rookie tackle and start every game and be solid enough, that's a big win because you're only going to get better at that position. They have a young cornerback, Brownlee, who's played pretty well for them. So some of the younger guys, the thing they need to work on, and I've been meaning to mention this for a few weeks, and now's the time.
Okay.
Not much to talk about in this.
All right.
The Titans' special teams are one of the worst units in the history of football, according to the old guys at Football Outsiders. They're one of the worst special teams they've ever recorded. The gap in terms of their measurement between them and the 31st team in the league in special teams is as big as the gap between 31 and 12. They are so worlds beyond the worst kickoff return unit, the worst punt return unit. They can't cover anything. Everything they do is terrible. And ever since someone put this in my ear about a month ago, I do keep an eye on it with Titans game. And you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh yeah, there's another 60-yard return they give. Oh yeah, there's another 40-yard. They are so bad. If you wonder why the Titans are this bad, it's not just Will Levis. It's not just the offense. That is one of the reasons.
And real quick, in kicking game situations, when they're blowing stuff like that, especially on coverage teams, that's back end roster churning.
Yeah.
That's just not having.
In coaching, you gotta blame the coaches.
Coaching's part of that, but again, the really good teams, they don't have that the dud players on their 40 through 53. They've got guys who can actually, if they got to even step in and play offensive or defensive snaps, can play.
We'll see how they adjust. They adjusted earlier in the season as Nick Westbrook-Akine started out with no targets in his first 4 weeks. And since then, he's gone on to score 6 touchdowns and do nothing but put points on the board, taking us to Sunday Night Football. It is the Los Angeles Chargers going on the road to the Chiefs, who are 4-point favorites, the over-under 42.5. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Melissa Stark on the call. Greg, we have seen this Chargers team play pretty well up front. They go up to the Atlanta Falcons, who now have 33% of their sacks against this Chargers front and Justin Herbert. How do they deal with the Chiefs pass rush, which has also had a bad stretch here recently?
Yeah, it's interesting because they're both winning games, obviously, the Chargers and the Chiefs, and yet they both have real big concerns. I think what's happened in the last couple of weeks with the Chargers offense has to make you worried if you're Jim Harbaugh that it's now down to McConkey or bust.
Yep.
And he's a smaller guy who's playing like a number one. He literally leads all rookie wide receivers in yards now. Brock Bowers has more, but he's a tight end. But he's got more than Neighbors, more than Harris. He's fantastic. But he seems to be getting banged up. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's his knee or his shoulder, every game where he's kind of hobbling out. So they're asking him to do a lot. And if he's not open, they don't have anything. And then the last couple of weeks, they have not protected Herbert well at all. A lot of it's on the interior with Bozeman and Zion Johnson, a first-round pick from a couple of years ago that really isn't working out. And so you think about the blitzes that Kansas City likes to send, and you think about Chris Jones, picking out a guy he can be on the inside. And man, that was a sobering game. I know the Chargers won it, but to not break 200 yards against the Atlanta Falcons, that is red fire alarms worry for the Chargers offense.
I totally agree. And look, the 4 points for Kansas City might seem too much just because they don't beat anybody by 4 points. It's usually down to the end. But here's where I think other than left tackle. I mean, that is a really tough situation for Kansas City right now, pass pro. That's why I think Andy Reid last year, when he was having all those issues at the tackle spot with penalties and things like that, what does he do? He runs the ball. They get Pacheco back. I think this is a situation now where offensively for Kansas City, we're going to start to see them road grade. They're going to say, we're going to protect our left tackle. We're going to try to run the football. Yeah, they're tough on the edges with the Chargers. They've got some guys up front. This is where I think they really start playing cold weather football and doing this. I like Kansas City in this game. I think as well as they're playing.
I feel like we're hearing that every week, though. That's like, okay, this is the week. You know?
I think now they're getting Pacheco back changes some things with their offense.
I agree.
Winning the forfeiture game against the Falcons in Atlanta, it's not moving me at this point enough to feel like, well, because I agree.
Kirko changes the forfeiture guy.
Yeah, well, it was last week. I mean,
was.
Kirk Cousins go out there. We'll talk about that Viking game a little bit and be great. Last week, it was not. It was decidedly not. The Chargers kind of got a little bit of a gift there. And this recent run on the Chiefs' defense has shown a lot of vulnerabilities that I don't think you necessarily just have Spags go on the chalkboard and fix those. Those are going to last for the rest of the season. Especially as you mentioned, Greg, if not Ladd McConkey, then what? Like, where's the offensive production come from? Because no J.K. Dobbins
Correct.
as well. Gus Edwards hasn't really shown in his replacement, and Kamani Vidal hasn't gotten the opportunities that I think maybe he should. I can't feel confident about either of these teams, but definitely not the Chargers on the road.
I think the Chargers defense has shown they're more than the sum of their parts. They're really well coached, and I think just being such a Justin Herbert fan as I am over the years, it's not a great formula, but the formula has to be our guy, Justin Herbert, is so good. He's actually going to even be better than your guy, Patrick Mahomes. And that's an almost impossible formula. He'll just have to play at an otherworldly level. Now, the advantage Herbert has, like I mentioned, is that Chargers defense is really sound, and you gave up some yards to the Falcons, but they forced turnovers. This rookie cornerback Tarheeb still got defensive player of the week. He's great. You got Marcus May coming off. What team? Was he on the Saints or the Dolphins? I'm not even sure. A couple weeks ago,
a couple teams ago, I think.
He was on the Dolphins, and now he jumps in there. You got Tony Jefferson, who was out of football for a minute,
coaching for them.
Suddenly, Derwin James is now kind of roaming around near the line of scrimmage, where he's so good again, almost playing like a linebacker type role. And if you can get anything, like Joey Bosa, let's show up here. Maybe he's playing through something, but he hasn't done anything. Maybe their defense can just keep them in an ugly game, and then Herbert does something magical at the end. And this number, I don't even know what it is, but it's too high. 42 is too high. I just like the defenses. I know the Chiefs defense, as you pointed out, Patrick, has not been playing well, but I kind of like the defense.
And a familiar opponent,
It was a close game, by the way. The first time it was here, it was
every time they play each other, it's close.
It was really early. That was a game the Chargers actually didn't have either of their tackles, so they were in a tough spot, and they held the Chiefs offense down like a lot of defenses have done this year.
Yeah, the tackle's a factor. On play action in that first matchup this season, Justin Herbert was 8 of 10, including a touchdown. No play action in that game. He was 8 of 17 for 79 yards.
Well, you got to run the ball to have play action. They just aren't doing it.
Yeah, so still looking forward to that one. A big one on Sunday Night Football in the division. Let's go to the NFC side. The Chicago Bears at the San Francisco 49ers, who are 4-point favorites. Got to feel like that would have been a larger margin a few weeks ago. Over-under is 44. Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, Megan O'Leary on the call as we get to this game, Steve, where the Bears have a chance to get the coach firing bump. Is that enough to beat Kyle Shanahan's injured squad?
And does it count when you already fired an offensive coordinator? I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I'm actually stunned that the Niners are 4-point favorite here at home. I mean, are the Bears just that bad? Because the Niners, I know they're not good, but the Niners, the whole Trent Williams situation, the injury, the terrible tragedy at home, no Christian McCaffrey, no Jordan Mason. I mean, they are rolling guys out here, even on defense, where I think this is a chance for Caleb and some of those guys on the offense can eat. The Niners defense just got absolutely truck steamrolled and ran over, and I don't see why the Bears and Thomas Brown, who's very familiar with the Niners, remember he coached with the Rams for a long time. This to me has got upset alert all over it. I think the Bears offense is going to come out of this. I just almost feel bad for the Niners right now.
Wow.
I just don't think they've got the personnel, and I think their spirit is actually a little crushed.
I agree with you, and it might be because I'm influenced by you, Steve.
Oh,
you know,
geez.
I look at you, as a mentor here, someone to model a career after, Steve Wyche. And you said something that stuck with me on the Quarterback Island episode of just like, I don't know if the 49ers are going to compete the rest of the year, like if they're going to be close in games. So
I mean, they're going to try.
What is informing you just being totally out? I agree. It's heading down a hill fast, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears won this game because of vibes, but you seem very strong that it's...
Well, I mean, look, it's a proud club. They're going to compete. Kyle's going to coach. Those guys are going to go out there and compete. They just have nothing. And when you just have this much negativity constantly, all right, and as horrible as it is, let's not forget what happened to like Charvarius Ward and Trent Williams, their personal situations. Those things will devastate the character of a team. I mean, it's just like, can it get any worse? And yeah, it keeps getting worse for these guys. I mean, it's tough. They've played and performed and functioned at such a high level that all these blows might be like, you know what, we just have to exhale right now.
And the circumstances going the wrong way. Kyle Juszczyk had that fumble in the snow. I remember the way the game started. I was looking at the 49ers energy because it's happening as we were taping our Sunday pod, and then the offense comes out and there's no 71. And I remember how much Trent means to this football team. The on-off stats for Brock Purdy with and without Trent Williams, there's a stark difference there. And then the defense hasn't been as good as it's been all season long, so they need the points. They're only scoring 22 points a game right now for the season, Greg. And so it's like we look at there, we see Brock Purdy, we see the Niners uniforms, but this is not the Niners team that we know.
Losing Trent is even bigger, I think, this year than other years because I think the rest of the offensive line hasn't been great. So then if you're adding suddenly a big trouble spot at the most important position where it was your one big strength, they have a young guard, Pooney, the rookie, who they like, but the other spots it's been a little leaky, then suddenly you're right. Maybe the whole deck of cards just collapsed. They actually have an 8% chance to make the playoffs according to Next Gen Stats, which was a higher percentage than I expected because that's going off the numbers based off the whole season. It's going off the division, and it's going off the reality is if they win this game, and let's say the Cardinals, who are favored, win that game, they're one game back in the NFC West. As doom and gloom as it is, and I agree, it's doom and gloom. I'm not pushing back. Right. I think I'm going to pick the Bears to win this game.
I mean, I just don't
they actually are alive. Like the reality is they do have a chance, but there is something about this team. When I saw that face of rage that Kyle Shanahan had a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you remember, if you watched the Fox broadcast. You were probably at a game, Steve, but he was so mad when they had 12 men on the field, and I've never seen another human more angry than Kyle Shanahan was in that moment.
That's not a good thing.
And I just felt like, oh, man, it's like too much. There's too much bad vibes there. And now it's amazing the Bears are the team with the better vibes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Vibes on the way up. Since week 11, DJ Moore has the second most receiving yards over expected. They've been throwing the ball close to the line of scrimmage, around getting the ball out of Caleb's hands quick, keeping him from taking some of those sacks, which I think is going to be important in this game. Nick Bosa's, it's a down year for both Bosas, but he's generated most of the pressures this season. So get the ball out of Caleb's hands and just enjoy the vibes of maybe a negative vibes coach no longer being.
Speaking of turning points, they haven't done too well since he wore that hat. I'm just saying, Bosa. Maybe that's what turned the season around. I do think the fired coach principle is a real thing. I do think.
Yeah, because he gets fired for a reason.
They're going to get a bump, they're going to feel good.
You read about all that locker room stuff.
And if they do lose, before we take a break, I just want to say this because I've been seeing this pop up on Twitter and among 49ers fans. You guys are insane, the ones that want Shanahan gone. Like, it's a real thing out there that they're like, is it time for Kyle Shanahan? Are you kidding me?
That's dumb.
Those folks are Seahawks fans in a mask.
Really?
Yeah, right.
Are you guys serious?
But Greg, it's the same folks that want Mike Tomlin to get fired. We're in this.
Fair.
And maybe a different crew.
But I hate this with the media. Are you going to play? Are you going to bench Aaron Rodgers this week and play who? Like we want. we're constantly like want to replace guys. We want to fire guys. Like what's the other? Okay, go ahead. Let Kyle Shanahan hit the streets.
trade. You could trade him.
Whipping your ass.
You could trade him. Someone would absolutely. Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago would like to
love to trade for
that ain't happening. Sorry, that's one club that ain't doing that expense.
That is it for just the start of the show. We're just getting going. Looking forward to Week 14, and yes, a Bills-Rams rematch of what was the opener just a few years ago. A lot has changed since then. Back on NFL Daily. You spent that break just wondering, what opener am I talking about? I remember it well because I was there. 2022, the Bills came in and they put it on the Rams in such a way that you wondered, what is this Rams season going to be like? And
it was that.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. So a little chance for revenge for Sean McVay.
It is, and that revenge is why it's time for hot matchups presented by Wingstop.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills, 4.5-point favorites across the street at SoFi Stadium. The over-under is 49.5. You get to hear Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi on the call. Greg, the Bills, a buzzsaw right now. You said the Rams, the best bad team in the league. Can the best bad team beat a very good Buffalo team?
I'm starting to feel bad about keep saying that. I'm going to stop saying that.
Okay.
It's my daughter's team.
Redact.
When I watch them, they're entertaining to watch. Still a lot of good players on that team. They're a 6-6 team. That's what they are. And 6-6 teams probably can't beat a Bills team right now the way they are playing, unless there's a little bit of a letdown factor. They just won the division last week in the snowy conditions. That was a high. You're flying across the country. It's a NFC game against a team that really needs it. It's not crazy. It's not a crazy scenario. Speak to it.
What? Okay, I'll jump in. Spoiler: I'm taking the Rams.
Whoa!
In this one, Greg, and I'll lay out the narrative that I have constructed to fulfill this outcome. Because
hot matchup, baby.
Because I think it's important where this Bills defense, I feel, can be vulnerable to true ones, and they haven't really had a chance to play a true one. Albeit Tyreek Hill having a down season in Miami a few weeks ago. The Dolphins scored points in there, and Tua spread the ball around pretty well. You have to go all the way back to that Nico Collins game where Nico actually hurt his hamstring running into the end zone away from this Bills secondary, and now with Puka fully healthy, Greg, and the opportunity with Demarcus Robinson playing well, he got back in the end zone. Of course, Cooper Kupp there, Kyron and Blake Corum going off. I like this Rams puncher's chance. And I feel like with that punch that they can throw being better than punches the Bills have received here in the past few weeks.
Very good. I mean, look, I'm going to back into this a little bit because the Bills do seem set for a letdown. 7 straight wins, 6 of them scoring 30-plus points. I just don't think it happens here. And here's why. The Rams start slow offensively. If all of a sudden they're down 10-0, or 14-0, the Kyron Williams factor, the run game factor changes. And the way that those guys are getting after the quarterback with Russo and Epinesa and some of these guys getting after the quarterback, your favorite player, Matt Milano, is back.
He's back
in the lineup. I just don't know if the Rams can do it now. If it's toe-to-toe for a while, okay, then the Rams have that puncher's chance. But if they fall behind quickly and they get one-dimensional quickly, which we know that Sean McVay does not mind doing, throwing the ball all over the place, then I think they're in trouble.
That all makes sense to me. I think the team that can run the ball better could win this game. The Bills have really turned into a great running team with the ace up their sleeve of Josh Allen being able to run in the red zone, which the Rams obviously don't have. The Rams really leaned on the run last week against the Saints. They were dominant running the ball. Their success rate was over 60+%. And Jordan Rodriguez talked about how, at halftime in that game, the players were like, let's run the damn ball. And they got it done. So if there is a weakness of the Bills defense, maybe that's it, that they could establish it, and it's like a 7-possession game. We're at that point for the Rams where they're clearly the inferior team. Less possessions is a good thing when you're going up against a great team like the Bills. And it shook me a little that Jordan was so quick to kick Stafford off quarterback
out of the gate.
Honestly, I'm a little shook. But watching Stafford the last few weeks, I think he's played okay. I think he's actually playing a little better. And he is like these old tennis greats I've been watching retire lately. That's who he reminds me of a little. Is like they can't quite get through, an entire tournament sometimes or an entire season, but they'll pop up and they'll play like their very best for one game. You know what I mean? For one match. Mm-hmm. And I do think Stafford, to what you're saying, Patrick, is very capable of that for one night. That he is just the best Stafford. You've convinced me into it. I'm not picking it.
You're calling him Washington Wizards MJ?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying
Greg
that.
is saying that Matthew Stafford
he's Olympics Novak Djokovic who's wearing the gold medal and beats the young best player in the world in that moment. For one day, you can be better. That's it.
Remember, MJ made an all-star team one year with the Wizards.
Okay, he wasn't like, he was better than people remember, though. Yes. I give you credit for that.
Motivation for Matthew Stafford, based on Greg's comments about him being absolutely.
I'm not saying
laundry.
that. I'm saying like when Serena was still making those Grand Slam finals and she'd beat the number one player in the world or whatever. But maybe you can't keep it going week after week, which is the season. You can do it for one game. That's a thing that happened. I do want to mention in this game, Micah Hyde is a member of the Buffalo Bills organization again. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it's a really he's on the practice squad. We don't know if he'll play in a game. I think this is in part like Micah has had to fight through some physical things, which is why he has not been on a field yet this season, which is why he really didn't draw the free agent interest that we thought. But it goes to show you how much he means to this franchise that they did connect, even if he's a practice squad guy and like almost in a Tony Jefferson type of role with the Chargers where he's kind of a coach. On the field to help these guys.
Well, you figure he'll kind of warm up. It's tough to ask him to come off the streets and just play right away.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. You look at the point of the season, he'll be there in case, if needed. Remember, he was a great punt returner at one point as well, too. He can really run. I mean, they got Brandon Codrington, who's a heck of a return guy. But I just think it's fantastic. It's a class move on both sides to connect like this. I'm sure he's got all the medical, clearing that he needed to have, and he's good to go.
Yeah, they got to get Amari Cooper a little more involved. His snap count did go up a lot last week, actually, in terms of like when they had their start. Like, so they need to start. This is a good matchup for them to use him as a true number one on their side. And then I did notice this quote that one of the Bills' offensive linemen had after last week's game, where he said, "We beat the brakes off the 49ers." And that's the type of team, that's the type of confidence. It was Alec Anderson who they bring in as kind of an extra lineman. They just kept running the same play over over. And they are becoming one of those offensive lines to me that have that sort of confidence as a group where that's their identity. And that could mean a long day for these Rams linebackers.
Yeah. It's a great matchup. It's
So are you taking them to win straight up on game debut? I'm putting you on the spot. Okay.
Yeah.
And real quick,
he puts his name behind that. We have records and everything.
Patrick is authentic as genuine as they come.
Not afraid to lose, as evidenced by my record on game debut.
Real quick, since you mentioned the Rams linebackers, one day they're really going to have to invest in that part of their defense. It's something that they have shown under Sean McVay that one year they bring in Bobby Wagner, otherwise churn him and get him out. Look what Ernest Jones is doing up in Seattle and how he's changed that defense. That's someone who they kicked to the curb in preseason.
Strong point.
Yeah, they can find them for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's go over to our next game. The New Orleans Saints, 4.5-point favorites. That was Hot Matchups presented by Wingstop, by the way. 4.5-point favorites are the Saints at the New York Giants in MetLife. Over-under is 41. Kevin Kugler, Daryl Johnson, Laura Oakman on the call. Steve, we have seen the Rizzy edition of the Saints.
Yeah.
He inspired. That inspiration can't lead to a loss to this hapless Giants franchise, can it?
Yeah, no, the Giants are going to win this game.
Oh.
What?
Here's the overarching theme. Just because it's the Giants and the way things are going, this is where they set the tone to lose out of the number one pick. Right now, they're sitting in that slot. Right? Them and the Raiders both have 2 wins. The Giants are sitting in that slot. And this is where the Dome Saints go up there. The weather's not supposed to be too bad. But without Taysom Hill, right? Without some of the things to make this offense function like it normally does, this is where the Giants defense buoys Drew Lock. And he comes in and they pull the upset. I'm giving you drama. I wish your son was playing the viola right here behind it. I'm giving you the drama. This is one that the New York Giants win and end up not getting the first overall pick in the draft. That time, they're going to click off like 3 wins to end the season and pick like 7th.
That would be a lot like last year. They had a 3-game winning streak. Around this time of the season, DeVito was involved, I believe, with that. One of them was over the Patriots, and they ended up not getting Drake May basically because of it, or Jaden Daniels.
Well, they could have had him. They could have had him. Could have had Saquon. But they just, we saw it was on full display in Hard Knocks.
What? They could. I don't know. Yeah, they would have to give up a lot to trade up.
Tends to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. They didn't want
to get your quarterback.
They didn't want it bad enough. Well, I guess we're not choosing them as a survivor pick. Patrick had thrown that out there as a possibility.
Steve says they're winning outright.
They're losing that.
I wouldn't like them as a survivor pick anyways, just because the Saints. I expect them to win. No Dexter Lawrence for the Giants. I mean, they just keep losing their very best players. There's a little buzz or at least speculation that depending on how Derek Carr closes out this season, that could impact what his status is for 2025. If they win some games, the Saints are not above being like, okay, let's all run it back. So you got to win games like this if you're Derek Carr. I do want to just mention, and then we can move on. Alvin Kamara, shout out to him.
Big time.
Got to top 1,000 rushing yards for the first time in his career, which is crazy that's never happened before. But he's 5th right now in the NFL in yards from scrimmage. So you look who's ahead of him. You look who's ahead of him. It's Saquon, Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs. It might be Josh Jacobs is 4th, and he's getting it done week after week. That dude is a star. I'll always believe if he doesn't wind up making the Hall of Fame that their coaching malfeasance over the last 3 or 4 years is what cost him, because he was a good player that whole time. So he's having a great year. I hope they keep leaning on him.
Taysom Hill getting too many touches.
Well, yeah.
Taking it away from Kamara, man.
I mean, those yards he would have. Decidedly. It's not conjecture on my part. He would have the record for most touchdowns scored in a single game, if not for a random Taysom Hill carry on the 1-yard line. I'm with you, Greg. Shout out to one of the best of this generation in number 41. The over-under for this game, also 41. So, synergy, numerology.
Wow.
Big game coming up for AK. Let's get, speaking of the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons, who somehow lost to the Chargers last week on the road. It is a Kirk Cousins revenge game against the Minnesota Vikings, who are favored by 5.5, coming off of their 4th and 6 comeback against the Arizona Cardinals. Greg, how do you see it going over under 45.5? G-Reg on the call with Joe Davis and Pam Oliver.
I don't think it's going to go well. That number is highly disrespectful to the Falcons and evidence that no. I take the Vikings. I just mean people have been watching the Falcons. Imagine what that line would have been 4 weeks ago. It would have been totally different.
Right.
But this team is in a free fall. I somehow, while writing out notes for this game, forgot that it's the Kirk Cousins revenge game. I guess I'm just all about ball, and that actually
that's a great example.
That
you're
just
all about ball.
Forget the narratives. It's actually sad to think about, because I had the thought, could this be Kirk Cousins' last NFL start?
Whoa.
And it would be crazy if it's in Minnesota. If Brian Flores, who to me is not a defensive coordinator, I would want to see if I'm Kirk Cousins right now, ends up just putting it to him, because he's got 10 turnovers, no touchdowns the last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about overall turnovers and fumbles. People are seeing interceptions. He's putting the ball on the ground. Look, Patrick, you've talked about it all season. We've seen it. He can't move, right? The fact that he just cannot move, their offense has been all over. I don't think he's going to go out there and play as poorly as he did against the Chargers.
But doesn't he seem like the type of guy that maybe this situation, it would be a lot for anyone, but I don't know. I think it's got to be challenging for him emotionally and all that.
It's going to be emotionally challenging. It's tough. And the thing is now, he's losing them games, right? There's always a thing like you can overcome this, and he's costing them ball games. And this is where, as adamant as Raheem Morris has been, that Michael Penix is going to be their quarterback for the future. Does that future start next week if they lose this ball game and Cousins comes out and loses another game the way he has the past couple games? Because their offense hasn't functioned. They're like, we're going to put 8 guys in the box. We're going to make Kirk Cousins beat us. I mean, it's not creative what teams are doing against Atlanta right now, and Atlanta has got a lot of offensive talent. And so for them not to be putting points on the board, and Kirk O'Chains, who I think is going to play better this game, But they've just got to get some points on the board early to start feeling good. Otherwise, this could get sideways.
Yeah, it would be very difficult for him to play worse than he did against the Chargers. Yes. And I say that to demean Kirk Cousins because everybody has a stinker.
Right.
I think it's a credit to Kirk Cousins to come back from that injury and play the way that he did in spots this season. But this is a situation where no matter how mentally strong he is, and it's going to be an emotional game because they had great moments between the franchise and Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. It's not that. It's going to be physically. Can he hang in there, do the things that he needs to do against the veteran defense that can do so many different things, show many different looks? It's not like you're going to confuse him, but you just get in literal situations on the football field where you need your body to do something, and it's not doing it.
Well, I think they can confuse him. Why not? I think the Chargers did. I think the Chargers, with some of the coverages that they were playing, were having him hold the ball a little extra. He's seen it all, certainly, but everyone gets confused sometimes. Tom Brady gets confused for games at a time during his prime. I watched it, and this Minnesota team is so diverse in what they can do. Last week, they played half their snaps without a down lineman. Now, they had, down linemen, guys who play defensive tackle were on the field, but literally, no one's hand was on the ground. Half the snaps. That's just craziness.
Well, and the way they use a guy like Josh Metellus and, Harrison Smith, moving him all over the field and bringing him, it'll be interesting. By the way, I'm going to bring back another Michael Jordan reference. You guys are saying Kirk was year 2 Michael Jordan Washington Wizards when he could only play in spots because he couldn't jump off the floor.
Well,
I mean, what's Coot right now too? He's killing them. He's as big a problem as Tucker is for the Ravens. This could be a close game. The one bright spot here is the Falcons came out of their bye, and Raheem Morris said they were going to be a different team defensively, and they were.
They were.
So that is something you can take from that game. If they can be an average to above average defense the rest of the way, and we've seen Raheem Morris go on streaks sometimes, and they got Ebiketie and they got some pass rush out of Nort. Who knows? If that's a little real, then maybe Kirk writes a totally different story, because how sweet would it be for him to get off this schneid and have one of those crazy Kirk Cousins games? There's no way. Okay, now I'm going Atlanta plus 5.5 at least to cover.
At least to cover.
Because every Kirk Cousins game is the same. There's going to be insanity, and it's going to be up and down, and it's going to end up with Kirk having the ball with a chance to win. That's how it goes. So that's probably within 5.5. I don't know how it ends. I'm not one of the script writers here.
And by the way, speaking of Raheem Morris's defense being better, Caden Ellis is the best defensive player in the NFL that does not get talked about.
Oh, wow.
Okay. He's a hell of a player. Inside linebacker who they bring on a lot of pressures. Brother starts for the Broncos. Father's Luther Ellis. One of 12 kids. Caden Ellis, hell of a player.
I never knew they were brothers, which of course, how many 2 Ellises
12 siblings, 7 of them adopted. Great story. But Caden Ellis is a hell of a player.
That's a whole defense with a sub.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's one of those things where we got to figure out, was that the Chargers line and the injuries for the Chargers, or the Falcons getting better and now going up against Sam Darnold, who, Steve, was early, but then late, we get to see the fully realized Sam Darnold on a game-winning drive, including a 4th and 6, where he got a dot to Justin Jefferson for the first down.
Member of the quarterback island, Sam Darnold, who, as I brought him in my argument,
no, he's not. he was close. But
we didn't get him on.
This is how good Sam Darnold has been playing lately. I actually felt guilty post-show that he was not on it and Gino was. That's how well he's playing. I was I genuinely feel bad because he's played that well.
Because he's not only winning games, they're asking him to win games. I mean, he's throwing the ball 36, 37 times a game, a lot of it late, and he's making those throws that he wasn't making when he was not with Minnesota.
I just want to make one last point on this one, which is they waved goodbye to Kirk Cousins because they had a price they would not go over. Now, Kevin O'Connell wanted him back, and I think they would have had him back if he had accepted a contract they probably knew he wasn't going to take, but that would have been fair if he wanted to stay there. If you think about the way they've built their team without Kirk Cousins, what a difference it makes, and it's one of the big reasons they're 10-2. Not only do you have J.J. McCarthy in the future, who unfortunately got hurt, and Darnold has worked out as a much cheaper option, but guys like Andrew Van Ginkel and Grenard that you were able to pick up in free agency, and Gilmore, and spread it around, and it's part of the reason that defense is so good.
Let's get to a couple teams now whose defenses and spots this season have not been good. It's the Monday Night Football matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. Cincinnati favored by 5.5. Favored again. The losses keep piling up. 49.5. The over-under, of course, Joe, Troy, and Lisa on the call. Steve, as we have seen, things go horribly wrong. So a midlife crisis car purchase for Joe Burrow. He goes out and buys the Batmobile. Is he going to need it against Micah and the company?
It's interesting because, I was at the game last week when Pittsburgh just scored at will. And, Greg, we talked about it yesterday with the same play, basically with, the running back with Najee Harris going out on the release right up the middle. They threw that play 10 times. But against teams with losing records, Cincinnati is really good. They're really good. And, again, their defense is not, they didn't want to tackle anybody. They're covered sometimes. It's okay. They're just, I don't know what has happened to that defense. There has been some talent drain, but their offense is functioning at such an insanely high level. I like the 5.5 for Cincinnati on the road here. I do think even though they lost that game the way they did to Pittsburgh, those dudes aren't quitting, right? They are playing their heads off offensively. So I think right now, this is a showcase game. It's against the Cowboys, and they're going to go out there and keep ringing up the scoreboard. Because that number 9, man, that is Joe Burrow is as real as it gets.
Right, and that's why I would expect them to win this game handily. These two teams, this is kind of the in the hunt, like, really, Bull? Because I noticed the Cowboys were on those in the hunt graphics still over Thanksgiving, and I've seen them sneaking on the Bengals. That's some respect for Joe Burrow, really. Just saying, like, we respect you so much, we're going to keep you in that graphic. Speaking of which, if you're watching this game, they got the alt cast.
Yes.
Different graphics. And I just learned, maybe this was out there before, but I just learned today that it's going to be our friend of the show, Mina Kimes, and Dan Orlovsky providing some analysis as part of the Simpsons cast.
Are they going to be
cool as hell.
speaking like as Bart Simpson?
I don't think they are, but they do have little Mina Kimes and Orlovskys that look like Simpsons characters that she put out there.
Oh, I can't
Just pretty
wait
cool.
to see those.
I'm gonna watch that.
Is Mina's hair going to look like Marge's? Are they going to stack it up?
I think they're trying to make it. I think they're trying to make it real to life. Both these teams, by the way, I checked on Next Gen Stats. They both have a 3% chance to make the playoffs. So I guess in a world where they just turned it around somehow, they still do have a shot. Zach Taylor better win this game, by the way. Big game, for him.
Oh,
everyone kind of assumes Lou Anarumo is gone at the end of the year, which is
assumption.
All respect to him.
I think he's a hell of a coach.
Guys that are that good, you don't stay a coordinator forever in many places. It happens. He'll get hired somewhere else. I think it's worth thinking about Zach Taylor and losses like this. I know the offense is good. If they had a loss like this on Monday Night Football or something, maybe that you would think would maybe get the Browns' attention.
But that's the thing. That's the if in this. I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals lose this game. I kind of saw it as the game went on against the Giants, where Cooper Rush, within 10 yards, especially throwing crossers, that's the guy you want. But as soon as the play requires something other than that, that's where the wheels kind of start to fall off of Cooper Rush. I think Lou Anarumo and his defense has a lot of veterans. I think talent-wise, maybe we thought a little bit more of the veterans on this Cincinnati Bengals defense coming into the season than the way things have, I don't know if some guys are playing through some things or not. But over on the other side, the talent's still there on the offensive side. I hope the front office figures things out. They have a unique product that other people don't have. They should use the resources available to them to keep those particular products together. Speaking specifically of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow, that's a fun thing. It would be better for the NFL and better for those of us who watch the NFL if those guys play together for their careers. I know maybe I'm wish casting there.
You are. But there's historical precedent with that organization where that's not going to happen.
But, I mean, they've broken historical precedent with this group since it's been together. So I'm a little bit of wish casting, perhaps.
Crazier things have happened. I haven't thought about that. Like, you never know. Maybe they will step up to the plate. I'd love to see it.
But unless Micah Parsons, this Dallas defense
Overshown,
DeMarvion Overshown scores touchdowns.
So good.
Last year's leader in interceptions with the record-breaking pick sixes. gets in the end zone. But it would take too much for Dallas to win this game.
I agree with you, but maybe the Cowboys will be inspired.
They played better.
They have played better, especially on defense, and maybe the rest of the crew will be inspired by Dak Prescott's steadfast support of Mike McCarthy, where he's been around there so long, Dak Prescott, and had so many contracts from them. He could even throw in a little zinger saying maybe they should let Mike have a little more responsibility. Let the coach the team. He basically was saying without saying it, which I respect out of Dak sticking up for his guy and saying maybe that's some of the reason why the coaches there struggle. Let's take a quick break. We're going to wrap up the rest of the Week 14 preview after the break. We still haven't picked our survivor. And yeah, we're still rolling. We're surviving. We're thriving. One of my favorite rivalries. Jets, Dolphins. And you might say, well, why would that be one of your favorite rivalries? I don't know. I grew up with the AFC East. And those fan bases, they really hate each other. For some reason, the Dolphins and the Jets fan bases hate each other, I think with a passion, actually, that the Patriots fans feel left out of.
As somebody who covered the Dolphins, I can tell you why. Because half of the Jets fan base lives in South Florida and occupies that stadium.
Right, and you feel it. You feel it even in New York. You feel it.
Yeah, the animosity goes, and that's why Greg loved this game and this matchup, because it meant either the Jets or the Dolphins would lose.
Yes.
For his New England Patriots to get a bump in the standings. Yes, the Jets at the Miami Dolphins, who were 6-point favorites. Kevin Harlan, aka God, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins on the call. Steve, we have seen the Miami Dolphins go on a run, and then we saw the Packers put a stop to it. They got out-physicaled, to use a trite football term, in the cold weather. Do they bounce back against the Jets?
They are in the warm weather, and I'm going to put it this bluntly, as I have it in my notes. If the Dolphins trick this game off in South Florida, then their intestinal fortitude needs to be highly questioned. They are. We spoke again yesterday on the show. Their offense is playing well. Sauce Gardner, is he even going to play in this game?
We don't know yet. But
we don't know yet, right?
I think there's some hope.
Okay, there's some hope. But this is a situation where even if he did play, the way that this offense, in warm weather, not in Green Bay weather, but even, Tua played well in that game, they should put up enough points. I mean, look, it's the Jets. They're going to scrap. Aaron Rodgers is not trying to go out like the way things are going. But if Miami's got any type of football pride, I think they go out there and they cover by the 6 and they play well in this game.
I like the extra rest, too, at this point of the season.
Yeah.
They're coming off the Thursday night game. Jeff Ulbrich said it's too early to know if Breece Hall or Sauce Gardner will be active, but neither practice. And he did note that Gardner plays a position where you need a healthy hamstring, especially in this,
this game.
In this
matchup. You need 2 healthy.
So I'm leaning towards he is not playing in this game. That is a huge loss, and I think it makes the Dolphins a very strong contender to be our survivor pick. Now, we have 2 games coming up, Steelers, Browns, Bucks, Raiders. So feel free to respond there, but we could maybe make our decision after, we go through all 3 of those games.
Okay.
But I have found our fraud watch on the Jets that Patrick and I have really been propagating on the airwaves since September to be a very pleasurable, mutually beneficial, and enjoyable activity that's everyone, I think, has benefited from. So that just shows where I'm leaning here.
Yeah, I'm also leaning in a similar direction to where Steve first planted that seed in our heads weeks and weeks ago, that this Jets team might not be all it's cracked up to be. And yet, the Dolphins, they started with the fumble. They donated 7 points.
Yep.
They had an opportunity to score. They had a 2nd and goal at the 1-yard line. Had some weird play calling that Mike Mack has since looked back in hindsight, said that maybe they outthought themselves a little bit there. I think the game was closer than the scoreboard indicated against a good Packers team on the road. And again, as we've covered extensively on the show, that the Jets aren't aren't a good football team.
Yeah, and Tua's going to have a response to not making it to QB Island. He has been.
You know what? That's it.
Fantastic for me.
Survivor pick.
Okay, let's not even wait.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Cue the music.
We don't need to wait.
Tua Snub did it. It put me over the top.
I love it. Yeah, like they're a little thin. They're a little thin on some parts of their defense, and the Jets are just not the team. I think that's going to expose that.
Quarterbacks completing 25% of their passes when they target Jalen Ramsey. He's playing very well.
Pretty good
right now.
Yes.
On the defensive side, and I know the defense has gone through a little bit, but it's I'm comfortable here.
Okay, I'm comfortable too. I'd like to see them get the running game going, get Raheem Mostert out of the doghouse, but yes, I'm comfortable.
He's in there.
Did he do something?
I don't think so.
I just don't think he did have some fumbles, I think, earlier in the year, but they're not using him. I don't know if it's a doghouse, but last week it raised my eyebrows because that's a game where you need a power runner and you're trying to run Achane up there and you're getting some negative
Well, they were
runs.
doing Achane when they came out here.
I'm like, did a Mostert just get old all of a sudden? It happens,
It
maybe.
seems like they're treating him that way because even when he was here against the Chargers, it was the Chargers, right? They came out to L.A. to play the Chargers with the Rams. I can't remember. But before the game, their running back coach, Eric Studesville, was like, you're going to see this guy and this guy. And he didn't mention Raheem. So
it's not it's not a personal doghouse, but just not playing him doghouse.
Yeah, they might like the younger guys better.
Well, an opportunity for several Dolphins to get healthy against this Jets squad, who, as we covered, might not have a couple of the pieces that were the reason you felt good about this franchise in the future in Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner. Another AFC matchup, a rematch of a snow game. The Cleveland Browns back against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This time it is in Pittsburgh. The Steelers, Greg, 6.5-point favorites. Oof. It's the CBS A1. We get Jim, Tony, and Tracy on call. An opportunity to see Russell Wilson after he goes off against the Cincinnati Bengals to get some revenge, Greg, against the team that besmirched his run.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the Steelers losing twice against the same opponent in such a short time. First of all, Browns fans living right. They're getting the Thursday night crew. They're getting the Sunday night crew or Monday night crew. They got Nance and Romo here. You got Andrew Siciliano when you're in the car on the way to pick up stuff. I mean, you got the best broadcasting crews in the business covering the Browns down the stretch. And why not? They're the best show in football with Jameis Winston.
I agree, 100%.
It almost got a little lost in the shuffle because of how it ended, just how many outstanding throws Jameis Winston made in that game. And people are like, well, that's the experience, the roller coaster. It's like the ups and downs. And in the end, I think the idea is that it's ultimately an L. Get some stops on defense, please, too. Like Jim Schwartz hasn't been great, but he is moving an offense that was among the very, very worst in the NFL. And since he's taken over in terms of moving the ball, they're up there. So he deserves a lot of credit for the high-level throws he's making, in addition to all the off-field comments that everyone enjoys and everything and wants to poke fun at, and I do too. I'm just saying, like, he's playing football well, so let's not have that lost.
Look, I think he'll be delivered from the Lord from throwing pick sixes. Okay, I don't think. But here's the thing: he threw the ball 58 times that game.
Yeah,
right. He's been throwing the ball 40+ times. Jim Schwartz's defense has been actually playing very good, Greg. It's their run game.
Okay.
Their run game has been nothing. You can't run the football with Chubb and Ford. That's why Jameis is having to throw it. I do think this is a game. I don't like the 6.5 number for Pittsburgh, but TJ Watt's not going to like the fact that Myles Garrett was barking after the Thursday night game.
Oh, good call.
Like, you remember, I'm the edge. I'm that dude. Don't forget that. So TJ's going to be a little worked up. Herbig's going to be a little worked up. Alex Highsmith is going to be back for this game as well, based on reports about his health status. So I just think Pittsburgh, and here's where Pittsburgh, because I was at the Snow Globe game. Where Pittsburgh lost that game to me was the fact that they played Justin Fields as much as they did. Not that the fact that he played 10% of their snaps, but when they put him in. Russ was rolling. Russ was like 10 of 10 on third down. Then all of a sudden they started putting Justin Fields in those third and short situations, which is when the Justin Field package tends to work. So they didn't necessarily break trend. Just the feel for that game right now, I thought, disrupted some things. That won't happen again. You only saw him play 2 snaps against the Bengals, and he did those well. It worked perfectly. I think they dial him back. I like Pittsburgh in this game. Cleveland's paying better. I do not like the 6.5.
Yeah, it's Myles Garrett a key here as well. Just watching him try to work his shoulder out late in that game.
Good point.
Against the Denver Broncos gave me some concerns because it was the shoulder last year when Myles had his fall off. And Steelers and Browns fans, what if, hypothetically, both Myles Garrett and TJ Watt are good football players?
Yeah, that part.
We don't in both of them. I think they will both try hard. I can only think of one instance.
Both be motivated
In his career where Myles Garrett didn't try as hard as he possibly could, much to the credit for Mason Rudolph there, that he didn't. But there's just such a high degree of difficulty for this Browns team. And you see it in so many different areas, especially in the passing attack where Jameis is throwing those picks because these are all contested targets.
Yeah.
Right? David Njoku had an average separation of 2.4 yards, and he got 17 targets.
I didn't think he got that much. I mean, he was blanketed.
No tight end has had that many targets since Travis Kelce 2 years ago.
And he made some tough catches.
He did, but it's asking a lot to do that consistently, and now you got to do it against the Steelers defense that's come out and seen Jameis play, albeit nobody was really seeing things very well in the snow, but it's a tough ask.
It is. This is the portion of the show where we tell you a little bit about AFC North Hard Knocks. This division format might have some legs. It was fun seeing a little Tomlin behind.
I didn't see it, but I heard it was great.
And this matchup here, George Pickens, Denzel Ward, doesn't get much better than that. Let's give some credit to Art Smith. Let's get a little more Arthur Smith in the Hard Knocks. He's making it happen.
Yeah, he is.
Everyone loved to pick on Art Smith when he was struggling. We got CPAT back there, Cordarrelle Patterson and Warren and Najee Harris, obviously. I'm thinking, like, they're really working this backfield. Maybe they do have enough weapons. They don't have wide receivers, but you got Freiermuth. You got the running backs. You got Pickens. Like, they got enough on offense to maybe go get that 1 seed. It's not even over.
Oh, they've got enough. Real quick, do they show the part? Because I was standing by the Steelers locker room post-game Sunday. First thing Tomlin says, he knows the NFL film cruiser. Get this ish off. He wanted to get that mic off, right? But then he says, is Bootsy Collins here? Because Bootsy is from Cincinnati, right? The legendary James Brown Parliament Funkadelic Bootsy's rubber band bass player. Where's Bootsy? I want to see Bootsy Collins. I was like, what coach is coming off the field hollering for a P-Funk All-Star? Only Mike.
Yeah, that's it. He's the only one.
It didn't make the show?
I don't know.
Didn't make the cut?
I did not watch the entire thing yet.
Okay.
I have to admit, I watched a little part of it.
It's a lot going on. It's a busy time of the year.
I'm gonna get through it. My son woke up and watched it this morning. He's crazy. He gets up at like 5:30 in the morning and just starts watching stuff.
Where'd he get that from?
He said it was good.
And that's a report that we can trust. Because Walker Rosenthal knows ball. As we get to the Las Vegas Raiders, the self-proclaimed worst team in the NFL, giving the best team in the NFL a run for its money, if not for a mistimed snap in the final opportunity at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 46. It's on CBS. Spiro Dedes, Adam Archuleta, and Aditi Kinkhabwala on the call. The Aiden O'Connell revolution. Is it real, Steve? Do we get that version of AOC 2 weeks in a row?
If he throws the ball to Brock Bowers every play, because Bowers is that good. No, I mean, the Raiders are not going to win this ball game. I like Tampa Bay at 6.5. The Raiders are my favorite to have the first overall pick, not the Giants. And then we're going to see Tom Brady's influence on this organization in the offseason. That's already where I am when it comes to the Raiders. Who's he going to hire as coach? If they have the number 1 pick, what are they going to do about the quarterback? Because that's where they have to go. Shadur? That'll be interesting. It'll bring a little more fun to the Raiders organization, but maybe Tom doesn't like that.
You just gave me a flash forward to what we're going to be talking about a lot on NFL Daily this offseason.
That's where we're going. That's where we are.
No matter where they're picking, it's going to be top 5, and they'll be in that mix. They nailed their first pick last year. I think they wanted a quarterback. They didn't have a chance to take one, and Brock Bowers deserves consideration for Offensive Player of the Year. And now
offensive rookie or offensive player?
Rookie, sorry.
Okay.
Although
100%.
He's only 4th in receiving yards, like among everyone, not just among rookies. I saw that and I was like, wait a second, are they filtering it out? It's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and then Terry McLaurin only has Bowers by like 8 yards or something. This kid is special. And we've been saying he's the best tight end in the league all season. So I'm feeling I'm feeling validated after the numbers he's putting up the last couple weeks. They have some things I've liked about their team. They're certainly competing. Our guy Jack Jones, who was on the show, I swear he shows up every week and is playing pretty well in coverage.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, it's a good play.
Bucks are like, Bucks fans are like, why are you talking about the Raiders? We're the relevant
because
team.
this will be the last time
place.
we're going to be talking about the Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah, give them. This is the farewell to the Las Vegas Raiders. But speaking of the Buccaneers, the incredible run that Mike Evans is on to start his career with 1,000-yard seasons. We're sitting at 521 yards right now. The remaining schedule is this game against the Raiders, and then the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Panthers, and the Saints. Can Mike Evans get that 400-some-odd yards to go over a K again?
Yeah.
Yes.
He looked like Mike Evans always looks last week. They targeted him a lot. That's not a murderer's row of defenses. It's really just the Chargers that are a plus defense out of that group. So I think he could do it.
I like the way they run the ball, too. Bucky Irving.
Man, he's good.
That may hurt the cause.
That may hurt the cause.
Right, but it could set him up for some touchdowns, some fantasy points at the very least. Bucky Irving was a subject. If anyone listening subscribes to NFL Plus, we do NFL Daily almost weekly. Every couple of weeks, we do a little NFL Plus segment, and we talked about rising, units. And Bucky Irving right now in that running game is crazy. He is second in the league in terms of avoiding negative runs, which I give a lot of credit to the offensive line. Then again, Rachaad White is one of the worst in the league at avoiding negative runs. So it's not all offensive line. And then in terms of
he runs sideways too much, though. That's why he's negative yards. Rachaad White.
Rachaad White, and Bucky Irving's second in the league in terms of making people miss tackles per run. So he gets around guys that are in front of him, and I would expect a lot of that in this game.
Right.
They'd be a strong survivor pick too. Just saying.
Yes,
but I do like our choice, the Dolphins.
Yeah. And Bucky Irving had those 147 rushing yards against the Carolina Panthers defense, who don't see things get a whole lot easier because comes the NFL's leading rusher and my MVP candidate, Saquon Barkley. He and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia Eagles, 12-point favorites at home against Bryce and these resurgent Panthers. Over-unders 46. Adam Amin, Mark Sanchez, and Christina Pink on the call. Bryce has been making tight window throws. Greg, well, what's he do when there's no windows against Vic Fangio's squad?
I think he makes the right decisions. I think he stays aggressive, and maybe that ends up with an interception in this game because I don't think he's going to go down without a fight. And I'm really curious. Makes me want to watch this game. That number's big, but this is a much more compelling game to me because of Bryce Young and everything the Eagles are doing than a lot of these other games. I think Bryce Young has evolved from, oh, that's a nice story. I feel like it was a lot of like patting on the head, like, oh, wow, like it's really cool that he's making a career and like this is nice for him too. This is one of the bigger stories in the NFL. He was the number 1 overall pick in the draft last year, and he is playing at a level where it's not just, hey, like he might be in the mix to start next year. It's like, hey, he might be awesome. And now it's early, and so you don't want to put too much expectations. Like you didn't want to bury him too much early, but he is playing at a level like PFF has him since week 9 up there in the top 5 with Herbert and Joe Burrow and Lamar. That's the level if you haven't been watching him on a snap-to-snap basis. And so this is a really ultimate test. He played Denver, which was a tough one to go against, but this is another tough defense. And so I'm really curious how he'll look against them.
But he can have opportunities to make plays because they're likely going to get behind pretty early based on what that Eagles offense is going to do to this defense. So this is where he's going to be put to the test. But, when we talk about players, I mentioned Caden Ellis earlier that doesn't get enough conversation. Zach Bond, linebacker for the Eagles, is another one that Vic Fangio, guys like Fangio and Zimmer, they came up together. They find a player every year that nobody's thinking of and gets them going. Now, it hasn't so much happened for Dallas this year, but in Zimmer's history, he has done that, And so Zach Bond and what he has brought to this linebacking unit that is such a mess last season, and now Nakobe Dean is playing in a certain way, and all these other guys, Jordan Davis, are playing in such a way. This is why, I think we got to say the Eagles, if the Lions slip up or whatever, and they get home field, the way this defense has grown and played and has these young players playing with their head on fire, that this is a very dangerous Super Bowl contender.
Jalen Carter doesn't come off the field.
Which is crazy.
And he is on fire the last month. He he started the season playing like a very good football player, but now he's playing at an all-pro level. I was racking my mind, and tell me if I'm just forgetting someone. If I had an all-pro vote, and I don't, and I can't get one, that was confirmed to me. Zach Bond is my first team linebacker. Fred Warner would be another one, but I think those are my top two, unless I'm missing someone. That's how good he's been.
Zach Bond's been great.
I'm racking my brain.
I'm trying to think. Who am I missing?
Late season Ernest Jones.
No, I mean, I'm taking Bond, man. That dude is getting it done week after week. It's crazy.
Tell me this: if Cooper DeJean had played the whole season, would he be up for DROY? Because he has made a significant difference.
I think he is now.
Playing in the slot.
I think he is now. Why not?
Quinyon has been special. I mean, they've both been special.
Verse and Fisk have also been
great.
We got it confirmed. There's gonna be a full ballot now, where I believe it's 5 names or 3 names that all the voters vote for. So Cooper DeJean probably should be on some of those. If we're going top 5 for sure, and if you want to put him in the top 3, that works.
He's getting a boost by, in my opinion, the most routine play I've ever seen. I go to Next Gen Stats to look this up to get specific numbers. When Derrick Henry catches that ball, he's going 7 miles an hour backwards with his back to Cooper DeJean, who is coming at him at 11 miles an hour directly towards him. That's it. I mean, it's a fun play for people to discuss because he scoops up Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
But the kid has been great.
Although
that play is routine.
One of his superpowers, I think, and it showed up in some splash plays, like when he got Jamar Chase down in the open field on 4th down, is
much better play.
Is recognition and working well with his teammates of where to go on certain plays. And he did make a good play on that. Like, that's a play that we've seen work for Baltimore, where if you get it to Henry on the check down, and he's got a couple yards of space,
right,
then he ends up getting that 7 yards. And the fact that there is no separation is a credit to Cooper DeJean. Even if the tackle was more routine, that is the kind of positive plays he's made.
He's been so good.
Sticking up for my guy.
And
he's not my guy, but
I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying.
No, you're right.
I'm just saying
there's other plays where you could say he's been great.
Right. He's been so good too. We have not heard anyone refer to him as sneaky athletic.
Praise God.
He's been that good.
I'll say a Jameis prayer to get rid of sneaky. And I think we've almost done it. I think we've all but eliminated it from the lexicon.
Well, that would be great.
The usual offenders haven't really used it.
It's a good lesson for kids that bullying works. Now, there's bad bullying. But just like you gotta be smart enough to know what is worth it. If you're just making fun of people over and over for using a bad phrase, that's acceptable bullying, I think.
Okay.
It's just like verbal, it's kind-hearted, but you're standing up on the right side of history.
Got someone else for you too. I was just going through when you talk about the inside linebackers.
Okay.
Linebackers. Does Frankie Louvu break it?
Ooh, that's a good one. They're kind of similar too, because you think a lot of Louvu's value has come from blitzing. Now, that's not, Bond isn't all the way there, but he's certainly closer to the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how Vic's had some of these linebackers over the year. He had, at one point, was Ahmad Brooks on the same team as Willis and Bowman?
Yes, he was. Ahmad Brooks was on those early teams, I think, when Vic was there, when they had Justin Smith and some of those guys.
Because I believe it was Fran Duffy, who was at all PHOY, who made the comp of Zach Bond to what Ahmad Brooks used to do in Vic Fangio's offense. And I was like, that's pretty good comp there. He likes to have that extra guy on the line of scrimmage. And Bond isn't quite as big, but he's a physical player, and he's a hell of a player. Yeah. That's a good one, though. Louvu. Can you vote for 3 linebackers? I think you can, right? Is it 2 or 3?
I don't know.
We got to change rules before we go, Greg.
Yeah,
I know it's against the Carolina Panthers. Is there anything Jalen Hurts can do in this game to try to make a case to get on the island?
Man.
Is there hope for Uno?
I think they might be too good with what they're doing for him to get on it.
Here was Gregg's argument against, because it was a very short conversation when I brought it up. He's like, he's not the first player you think of when you talk about their offense. Your MVP, Patrick Saquon Barkley, is.
I feel bad about it, too.
But that doesn't mean the quarterback's bad.
Right. I feel bad about that, too, because I think if you look at QBs, if you're doing the QB rankings like Shook does every week, after you get past about 5 or 6, there's about another 7, 8 guys playing at a really high a high level. I think that's Hurts. I think last week's game actually was the perfect example of why Hurts isn't on QB Island. If you go through the throws he made in that game, he didn't have to do anything.
He doesn't make many.
It's not his fault, but they were all just these little, like, he didn't have to make any high-level throws in that game, and they beat one of the best teams in the NFL.
He's throwing the ball 24 times a game, and like I said, Sam Darnold's throwing it 38, so they're asking more.
And half of them are just these little smoke routes, or it's a little play action where it's first read, throw it right away. And I think he's capable of doing more.
Sure.
So it's a fair point.
Yes, and that's why he's in positions to make the decision to get the easy throws, because he can do more, so he has to defend more. Right?
Okay, well, who would you have over him? That's a conversation.
Oh yeah, that's not my responsibility.
day.
I do the preview shows.
That's
and the
the thing.
recap shows.
People are like, oh, I can't believe you didn't mention Sean McDermott for Coach of the Year or whatever. It's like, okay, well, who you taking off that list? If you're gonna say that, you got to take someone off. It's not hard. It's courageous work that we do here as panelists, analysts, whatever you want to call it.
Bravehearts, man.
We are. We will be back on Thursday night, one of the best Thursday night games of the entire season. I looked at the list. It is the best primetime game for the rest of the season. Lions and Packers. Appreciate you, Steve. Appreciate Patrick. As always. You can check us out on Game Day View, by the way, too, on NFL Network. That's fun.
There we go.
Picks.
Look, when we're bringing Micah Hyde back into the mix, we might as well bring Tyrod Taylor and Kyle Williams. You know football is back.